All right. Welcome everybody to the ABC week. This is our first session. This program is like so cool. I was in the backstage with that music, like super happy and excited about this webinar where we're gonna be unpacking all the things about the Amazon backend calibration, and we're just gonna give a little bit of time for people to join us, and we're gonna start with the Amazon backend calibration week. So I'm gonna pull the presentation. Perfect. So, welcome, guys. If you want to put in the comments, where are you coming? Where are you joining us from? And in a few minutes, or I want to take a little bit of information from you, because if I understand really well where are you coming from and what are the things that you're looking to get from this webinar, the content will be better. I got your questions, so the people that sign or fill in the information for questions, we're gonna be answering that depending on the webinar. So remember that we have three. One is today. This is the first one. Then we have one on Wednesday, and the other one is on Friday. Each of them are different. It's a different content. So I'm taking those questions that you already submitted, and I'm answering in the appropriate webinar. So welcome, Todd from Minnesota. That's amazing. Welcome, people from California. Good morning from Australia. Oh my God. Thank you, Paul, for joining us from Australia. That's amazing. Good morning and good afternoon, good night for people that are joining us. Right now it's 2 p.m. and I'm in Utah right now. So, super excited to be here. San Antonio, that's Draper. Oh my God, that's here. David, I'm here also in Utah. Well, I think that's the same place, right? Perfect. So I'm gonna be doing a little bit of good night from Belgium. CJ from Belgium. Amazing. Uh Good morning from Hong Kong. Wow. That's so cool. I'm so excited guys to be here. Honestly, so the reason of this, and just a quick story, the reason of this week, it's because I always get a message saying like, "Hey Vanessa, when are you gonna do a course? When are you gonna do an advanced, you know, webinar or whatever?" And this is it. I'm gonna start doing this more frequently, and I'm validating the content that I'm putting out here to eventually make the backend management course. So this webinar, it's about backend. I know that you guys are very interested or probably know me because of the flat files that we're gonna be covering in the second session, everything about flat files, and in the third session about SOPs to use those flat files. So bear with me, like you need to stay tuned. You need to participate in the three for everything to make sense. It's gonna be nice, it's gonna be dense, and I hope that you get from here a lot of tools, a lot of do it yourself processes so you can improve the backend management. And that's the main thing. Obviously, I could not cover everything in just 3 sessions, so that's why I'm gonna start doing more and more, and eventually coming up with something better for you and a content and all that. So let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Let me pull up my slides. Perfect. So, backend management. So, for the ones of you that don't know what backend management is, we're going to be covering three main areas: your catalog, your inventory, and your account health. And that's the ABC of Amazon in Seller Central. That's why we call it Amazon backend calibration, because a lot of times I see sellers that think that the catalog is something completely separate to their account health, or their account health is completely separate to the inventory. That's not the approach that we use, and the way I see Amazon and the way that everything plays in our business. It's a holistic um, environment, right? We need to start seeing all those areas playing with each other in a different level. And most of the things that I'm going to talk about here will relate to maybe one, two, or all the three areas. One of the other things that is important to consider, guys, is in the third session where we're going to be covering problems, and I'm going to be giving you like SOPs to solve problems. You need to understand how each area relates to each other. So the one that is the most important is the account health. That is obviously the one that uh, restricts the catalog and the inventory. If you have an issue in the account health, you will have problems in your catalog and in your inventory or stuff like that. Or if you have something in the catalog, could trigger stuff in the account health and could make your inventory stranded. So I want you to get out of this session saying like, okay, everything is one machine, and each area it's a different piece that I need to be taken care of in order to make my business and the back end of my machine better. So the analogy that I give for this kind of back end management is, imagine that your business is a car, right? And everything that we're gonna be talking about is the engine. Is everything that is under your hood that nobody else or most people don't really know how to fix or how to manage or how to take care of it, right? Because we are in this business and we're trying to grow revenue and drive more traffic, optimizing every single way. So making our car faster, bigger, prettier. But when it breaks, we don't know how to take care of the engine. So that's what we're going to be covering today. So the ABC week for you, for the ones that want to understand why made these like three different sessions, is before we go into the how to solve the process, we need to understand what's our toolkit. We need to understand what are the things that we have available right now to start using so we can start implementing those SOPs. That's the first session today, Monday, August 29th. The second session will be on Wednesday, the 31st, at same time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And in that one, I'll be all in flat files, everything. The one that I'm going to be using the most in that session will be the category listing report, which we're going to be covering today. I'm going to be showing you how to download it, and how to use it. So um, today it's to cover all the basics. And on Friday, we're going to have the SOPs. That is the end, or like little graduation from our three sessions. And the idea is that at the end, on Friday, you will know what toolkits you have, how to properly use the flat files, and how to troubleshoot some of the most frequent issues that we have in Seller Central. Obviously, I cannot cover all the issues that happen in one session, but I already made a poll on social media on what are the most frequent issues, and I'll be covering that using flat files and using all the toolkits. Perfect. Now that we understand that, in today's session, we're gonna talk about all the tools that every seller should be using to manage the backend of their account. And this is important, and the reason why our content or my content in social media is different from everybody else is that I'm not gonna tell you how you can make your car, your machine faster. I'm gonna tell you how to fix it when that has an issue. And the thing is that this is so important. The management is so important because the day you go to a webinar, to an event, or you find out a different way to expand your business or grow your business or take more revenue, that can break things inside, right? If you don't have the right engine to drive super fast, you will break your machine. So those are the tools that, or today I'm going to be covering those tools that you need to have in order to start making those processes better. So this is extremely relevant, not only for you as a seller, but also for your team. So this is something that you can send over to your team. They can learn, they can train, right? So every time there is an issue, you maximize on efficiency. Because at the end of the day, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people overlook management is that they don't know how much money they are wasting or how much money they are losing each time or each hour is each day that your listings or your account is not 100%, right? So before we start, I want to know, and if you could put it in the chat, how many of you here are sellers that are already selling, and how many of you are wannabe sellers? So I can understand better what you are, what's your demographic, and target exactly what you need. So David, to answer your question, 3P or 1P. So the basic principles are for Amazon, like everything, right? But vendor, which one each 1P has different SOPs and different tools. Today or in this webinar, we're just gonna cover Seller Central tools. And if you make right, and this is from experience, I can tell you, if you already understand Seller Central and the basic principles and the tools, it will be super easy for you to implement those tools in Vendor Central. Um, the only difference is support. Seller support and vendor support is completely different. So amazing. I see that a lot of you are already sellers. Perfect. So let's start with the first topic, and this is Catalog 101. Remember, in this webinar, I want you to understand the basic principles. So we are doing Mechanics 101. Basic stuff, probably some of you will say like, oh, but I already knew that. Right, perfect. But the thing is that in this webinar, I'll tell you how every piece goes together and plays together when solving an issue. So it is very important because in the second webinar and the third webinar, especially in the third webinar, I will be referencing all of the tools that we're going to talk about today. And if you don't pay attention to this, you probably be completely lost in the last one. Okay, so for the Catalog 101, I need to start with the contribution rights pyramid. Yay! I guess that some of you already have seen me talking about this in different podcasts, different webinars, but this is the basic principle, most fundamental principle of every single issue that you face in your catalog. And all of the problems that I get, sometimes messages, DMs, emails of issues, it's because people don't understand how the pyramid works. And once you do, you can start fixing that or addressing exactly what's the root cause to solve this issue. So let's see the pyramid now. In the lower part, you can see that I have in the blue section, I have professional and individual sellers, correct? Those are the sellers that don't have brand registry, as you can see in the legend on the side, the blue, and those have points. So the contribution rights pyramid work on points. So each time you contribute to the catalog, you get, because of the type of seller you are, you get a basic point system. And the only way to override information is having the same or better points or higher points than the person or the seller or the team that is contributing that. Okay? So on top of that, each seller that doesn't have a trademark needs to address their catalog issues with the catalog team. Okay? That is normally when you call or email seller support, that is the first team you get, the catalog team. But they only have the rights to override sellers without brand registry, because on top of them, it's the brand registry team, which has the brand registry sellers, which have 52 points. Okay, so just by having a trademark in Seller Central, and I hope a lot of you, if you can put it in the chat, how many of you have already a trademark? This is extremely important because it is a higher contribution. You get somewhat protected, and that's some of the things that you hear in the industry, people saying like, oh, if you have a trademark, you are completely protected, nobody will hijack your listing or stuff and stuff, which is not completely true, because at the end of the day, a higher entity, which could be a vendor, which is another seller, or it could be an internal team on Amazon, could override your listings. So bear in mind that that is important, to understand that by having a trademark, you are not completely protected in a way. So the team that answers to those sellers, and the only one that can help to override stuff, is the brand registry team. But if the contribution is coming from a higher uh, entity, which could be vendor, as you can see in the pink red uh, link, vendors cannot change. So brand registry cannot change information from a vendor, and a vendor cannot change information from the retail team. And on top of the pyramid, we have the Amazon internal teams, which there are three, but the one that is the most interesting for us is the FC team, which is the fulfillment centers. And that's why we cannot change information of our dimensions or our weight without asking for a qubit scan. That's why they are the only ones that can change that. So if you have an issue like, oh, my inventory has the wrong dimensions, they're charging me for the wrong FBA fees, or etc., that can only be changed with a case, right? So don't struggle if you cannot do it with a flat file. If somebody else is overriding you, in this case the FC, the only way to do it is through them. So now that we understand the basic principles of contribution, remember, the catalog is a pool of information. Amazon takes the best contributor, or the contributor with the highest points, to put that information, okay? And also take in consideration that they play a huge role in that contribution. So Amazon has internally some teams and people that their only job is to optimize the catalog, make the catalog better. So if you say like, hey, but they changed my listing, they changed my title, and that's not accurate, yeah, exactly. They don't understand your product, but they will make subjective decisions. And once you understand that those subjective decisions are higher in your contributions, you will be able to address that request and address that change with the appropriate team. Okay, so a few other considerations about catalog facts, and this is super important that we understand, guys. The contributions of a listing are attached to SKUs and not ASINs. Let me repeat that. The contributions that we make to a catalog, to a listing, are attached to SKUs and not ASINs. So, explaining here, when we create a SKU in Seller Central, that is our first listing, we're gonna create it because we're gonna send the FN SKU to our manufacturer, and we're gonna take all the stuff. Your original SKU is the one that will hold all the information of that listing. So one of the most frequent issues that I see is that when people go, so they created the first listing, but they are not really using that one. They create a new one, a new SKU or a new FNSKU, because they needed to send it to their 3PL, and they need a different SKU. And they start changing information in the second SKU or in the third SKU. Or if you have more than one SKU, or more than two or three or whatever, you start changing the title in one, and then changing the bullet points in the other one, and so on. This is wrong, okay? Because when we contribute to information in the catalog, they attach it to the SKU, the original SKU that we are, like the source SKU that we are creating, and that will reflect on the ASIN. And that's why people that do the resale model will share information in the ASIN, but they don't have the original SKU to change that information. So, best practices. If you create an ASIN, or if you create a SKU in your catalog, make sure that the original SKU it stays there, and you save the information there. So, in my opinion, best practices, that's what I like to do, is I create the first SKU, the original one, and I save it as I used whatever taxonomy, and at the end of the taxonomy, I said non-delete. Do not delete, okay? Because there is where I'm gonna be making all the changes. So if you right now have any issues with your listings and you're like, oh, Vanessa, I cannot change the title. My first question to you is, are you updating your original SKU? If not, go ahead and change that original SKU, because the other ones, the secondary ones, do not hold the contribution in the backend. Perfect. Okay, so again, change the information. One of the biggest pains that I see sellers have is the images, the information of the images. Images are, according to um, Amazon internally, they are subjective to change. What does that mean? If a team that, the optimizing team that goes there to the catalog and make things better, they decide that your image, the new image that you're putting, is not good, and they want to put the old one, or they want to put something else, they are allowed to do it. And I know this process doesn't really make sense, but it's the way to do it. So the best way to fix images, and this is very important, is that you reference and have the same images in your manufacturer website. So again, same exact image that you want to put in sellers in on Amazon.com, make sure that you have it in your manufacturer's website, because in that way they don't have an excuse, or they don't have an argument to not put the image that you want into a listing. So that's few tips that, if you have any issues around this, just raising that question: am I changing the original SKU? Do I have proof that the image that I want to change is in manufacturer website? With those things, so you will be able to change that information. Perfect. So let's talk about the Seller Central Toolkit. I have a list of tools that we use internally in the agency. This is all completely all in Seller Central. I'm not making things up, or I'm not letting you pay for anything. This is all of the things we have. And I'm going to be referring to these tools in our second and third webinar. So let's take a look into it. The first one, my favorite tool of all, is the category listing report. So the category listing report is a type of flat file that right now it came back to be only available by request. So we had, I don't know, maybe 3 months where the category listing report was available to download for everybody. Now they restricted again, and we need to open the case. I'm going to show you then for you to have the information. So this report, or this flat file, has all your category information or your catalog information. So we're going to be working on that in the second session with all the attributes and customization. I'm not going to go deep into what the category listing report and how to use it, because the second session is fully dedicated to this report. So if you want to have it, you go here. So you can see in my, let me just take my picture out of the thing so you can scan the QR code. Perfect. So you scan the QR code. That is our SOP to download the category listing report. It will tell you, like, open the case, do this, say that, blah, blah, blah. And you find that in your inventory reports. I don't know if you guys have it, if you have access right now to it openly. Last time I checked, none of the accounts that I have access to had it open. We needed to open the case. So again, you guys do that. Second thing, which is the case log taxonomy. So when we are doing, or when we are solving problems in Seller Central, most times we need to request help from seller support, unfortunately. But the way to be on top of the list, to have more priority, to filter information, to make our work efficient, is by using a case log taxonomy. And honestly, guys, this is a super simple change. It's super simple, but it makes a huge difference when you are solving cases and when you are telling your team or yourself to look for other references. So one of the things that happen is that sometimes we have repeated issues, sometimes in the same listing or in the same variation. We solve it once, and the issue comes again. So to solve it twice, we don't really need to go through all the whole process again. We just need to reference cases. We reference the last successful case we did, and with that, we will streamline and the process to seller support, and we will make their work and our work more efficient. So going to the slides, this is how the taxonomy works. You see on the top of the page, I use marketplace, okay, which marketplace I'm working on, because on the case log management or the case log tool to filter, you don't see which case is from what marketplace. So I use the marketplace, then the area. And area, as you can see in the lower side of the column that is in the left, I have catalog, inventory, account health, fulfillment, reimbursement, and orders. This is the examples of our processes. You could have whatever area that you like. You like to subdivide catalog by brand registry or not brand registry, or variations or not. It's up to you. This is just the example. Then I have the subject, the asins, and I put an asterisk here, a little note. I only put maximum three asins, because the taxonomy or the case log name is up to, or it has a maximum of 240 characters. So as you can see there in the image in the screenshot, that is in the short description, right? So I put the marketplace, the area, subject, ASIN, SKU, or FNSKU. Depends if you're working on with inventory, it's good to put the FNSKU or keyword, right? And the initials of the owner. So if you have a team bigger than one people, if it's not only you, I do recommend you to put the initials of the owner, because in case that something happens that you want to get more information, or you want to reference that case in the future, you will know who to talk to get that information. Some examples here, as you can see, in the account health, I have the example of Mexico. So in Mexico, I have an account health issue that it's related to the verification. So I put the account verification request, the ASIN, the SKU, and my name. Same thing with the catalog, and same thing with the inventory. So that way, next time that you, for example, let's take the inventory case. You did a Bing check on Germany for your FBA products because they were charging you wrong for the FBA, correct? So you did that last month, and this month you realize that the dimensions change again. Okay, so instead of going through all the process again and all the pain and calling or emailing and all that, you will just open the case and you will reference this. You will say like case 1, 2, 3. I need to go over, like I need to check this because the dimensions change back. And this is a huge time saver. On top of that, you know that Amazon have a lot of artificial intelligence and a lot of software to make their work more efficient, right? So when you open the case, the first thing that the system does is a software that will like read your case, and if they think that they can answer your case with a cookie cutter answer, the system will do it automatically. But when you use a different name for the case, so the short description of the subject of the case, once you customize that subject, the system will automatically send that to a real person. So you cut that software. The software will never reply automatically to you once you have the case log taxonomy there. And the other tip there and super trick is attach information. Once you attach information, let's say a PDF, an image, a file, or whatever, that also cuts the system and goes directly to a real person. Okay, so then we have the feed processing report, which is the report we get or the information we get back once we upload a flat file. You can get it anytime, but when you have errors in that flat file, you will get a download processing report, and it looks like this. Sorry, a feed processing summary. And it looks like this. This is another tab of your template, and it will tell you what are the issues that you have, with a number type of errors, which we're gonna be covering in webinar number 3. We're gonna be covering the most common errors, so you can see it, and a little explanation of what's going on. Most of the times, I do believe that if you learn how to read the information, you will be able to solve the problem yourself. The only thing when something comes up in the file that requests seller support to fix or to help us with this issue, normally it's because they have contribution issues. But if it's internally, most times the feed processing summary is the way to do it. Again, being more efficient and cutting time. Then we have the inventory loader file, which is probably my favorite tool to solve issues that are related to contributions. And remember, sometimes, and we will see that in webinar number 3, but sometimes the issue with contribution is not necessarily because somebody with higher points is contributing to your listing, but because the system is not refreshed and the system is not reading you as the owner of that listing. Okay, so the inventory loader file, again, you can scan the QR code here, so you go to the policy and you can download it yourself. The thing why I bring this file up is in column I, it has the most powerful columns of all flat files in Seller Central for sure. It's the add delete. And there is a feature called X delete. When we delete stuff with the X delete, we are basically hardcore. Like, we are really, really refreshing the backend um, in a principal way. Like, we are removing the information of that SKU and refreshing it. So most of the times, if you face an issue where the person that is helping you in seller support says like, hey, you need to delete Daisy for 24 hours. Make sure that when you delete it, don't delete it from your managed inventory in your Seller Central, because that means that you're only deleting that SKU and that ASIN from your managed inventory. What happened with the inventory loader file and X-delete is that you delete it from Amazon's catalog, and that will help you refresh the information faster. Again, I'm not gonna explain a lot on processes because that's our webinar number 3. But inventory loader file, make sure you have it on hand for webinar number 3. Then program policies. That's a fun tool. I love it, and I'm one of the persons that read policies, Amazon policies, before going to bed. True story, like, seriously. And the thing is that most times we see Amazon as this huge entity that wants to monopolize the market, and it's all against sellers and stuff. And that's a story that we tell ourselves. But honestly, a lot of the issues that we face and a lot of the processes that we need to follow in order to fix things are in the program policies. And again, I never work on Amazon. I don't know anything about it, like, from the inside. I don't have information more than whatever you can find, and I still manage to understand really well what are the things that are said here in order to implement in the issues that I have. So again, understanding Amazon on the basic, so make sure to be updated on that. So most I don't advise you to go there and just like start reading policies for reading policies. It's very boring. I'm gonna tell you that for some people, it's fun for me. But make sure to stay update in the news section in your Seller Central. They always put news, and sometimes they're like, whatever, that doesn't bother, or blah blah blah, or that doesn't pertain to my Seller Central. But most times they do. And so when they change, for example, restricted keywords, when they change the way that they're gonna measure FBA and all that, that's a huge thing. And this is one of my favorite policies. It's called the Browse Tree Guides. Again, you can scan this QR code so you can have this policy. You can open it in your phone or your desktop. So we're gonna be using this one in webinar number 2. with the flat files, I'm gonna show you how to optimize the backend. It's a huge thing. You're gonna optimize the backend in webinar number 2. But most of the times people ask me like, hey, but how do I find that information? What are the valid attributes? What are the things that I could do or not do? This policy have the answers. So when you download the Broad 3 guide, it's a PDF. You can download it in PDF or in Excel. Once you download that Excel have the answers. And you will see in second webinar what are the things that I'm gonna show you and how to utilize that policy. Again, Seller Central is a policy. It's completely open to anybody to use. And then the last one is the self-serving tool. So self-serving tool, you may know it, is in the help section. It's the thing that when you want to fix or change an attribute in a list, in a SKU or an ASIN, the self-serving tool will help you. And I think that sometimes it's very inefficient. They don't really solve or the tool doesn't really solve the issue, but it gives you the answers of what type of problem you have. So you may see an answer saying like, oh, you are not the main contributor to this ASIN, which means that the system is not recognizing you as a brand owner. Or it'll tell you that the changes can be done in your edit product page in Seller Central. So what it means in that scenario, it means that there is a desynchronization of information. The system really reads you as the owner, but it's not refreshing your contributions. So again, I like it because it tells me where to look at, so I don't waste time when I call or email seller support to solve an issue. I really can address it immediately. If it's a desynchronization, I have a process for it that we're gonna see in webinar number 3. If it's a contribution issue, I already know how to address it to the brand registry team or to the catalog team or to a leadership team in case you have vendor contributions or stuff like that. Amazing tool. So again, this was a video, and it's a PDF, but whatever. It was a video of a total walking. It was walking slow before, and then it walks fast. So I wanted to tell you about the inefficiencies in the business. I've seen, and we are getting into a time where our numbers, our issues, they really translate into money we're losing. And before that, in the pandemic, we were doing so much money that nobody really was paying attention to the little things. But now the little things make a huge difference in your business. So we need to be on top of our efficiencies. And I'm going to show you 3 tools that I like a lot to solve those inefficiencies that are related to revenue. And I see a lot of times sellers, even huge sellers, don't really have the answers for the things that I'll be showing you. And going down to the numbers, how much it costs you each single area of your business and how you can optimize for it. So the revenue tools are 3, and we have the Amazon Profit Calculator, Inventory Planner, and Shipping and Prepping Optimizer. So going to the first, Amazon Profit Calculator. This is not the Amazon Profit Calculator that is in Seller Central, where you put the ASIN and the Amazon will tell you how much fees they're gonna take out of it and how much FBA fee and what's the cost of shipping. This is a more sophisticated tool that takes in consideration obviously your cost of goods, your Amazon fees, FBA fees, and advertising. And I see all the time with a lot of sellers that I work with that at the end of the day, they don't really know how much money they're making per ASIN, per unit they're selling, because they don't have clear these numbers. So the calculator is this one. So you can scan the QR code. It doesn't work. You won't see it really, really well in your phone. You're going to see the information, but you're not going to see it in your phone. Or you can go to the tool, SoStock/Amazon FBA calculator. Again, this is a completely free tool. And you can use it anytime. They don't ask you, you don't need to pay anything for it. So let me just share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Perfect. So do you see now the Amazon FBA calculator? So one of the things that I like about this is that it covers more than just your simple cost of goods and Amazon fees. So here I'm putting the information of an ASIN. So I'm selling a product for $29.99. If it's in the office category, I put all my dimensions and my weight and all that, and it's telling me how much are the Amazon fees. Again, that's nothing new. We have that in Seller Central or in the calculator that they give you. Then they give me the prototypes, which is normally most products they divide it between every category, or dangerous goods, hazmat, or apparel. They have different fees with that. So pay attention to it. This is one of the first things. If your listing is could be an apparel which is cheaper than most products, you could change that in the backend, and you can make a case to make that more or make your FBA cheaper if you can argue that your listing is actually apparel and not most products, right? Then time of the year, we already know that's nothing new. I'm putting things that are from October to December. So my product costs $7.50, right? And I have all here all the different numbers that are related to my cost. Okay, so having the cost per unit, guys, it is extremely important. Again, we want to maximize for efficiency. It is very inefficient that you say like, oh yeah, that pallet cost me 80 bucks, but how many units are in that pallet, and how much it costs you per unit to have that pallet in a warehouse, to send that pallet to Amazon and all that. So breaking down those numbers and putting it very simple, so you could say if this ASIN is profitable or not. So again, with all my cost of goods and my fees, this ASIN that I sell in $29.99, it cost me $12.30. So if you say, it's like, oh, that's profitable, right? But then I need to account for advertising, which is one area that I see a lot of sellers say, like, you know what? I just want to spend 50 bucks a day. I don't want to spend more than that, right? Which is like 1,500 a month. But at the end of the day, are you really optimizing for your cost? Are you really just optimizing just because putting an arbitrary number, or that's the market price? Correct. So having that in consideration, your tacos, is extremely important. And with this tool, you can play with the model, right? You could play and say like, okay, what's the price, or what's the budget that I have to break even? What's a budget that I have to say like, okay, I'm gonna go super hard on advertising. I'm gonna be losing for the next 3 months. I'm gonna be losing 20% in revenue just because I wanna go into the first page. And that is so important, to strategize those things, right? At the end of the day, the break-even tacos, the calculator gives me the break-even tacos. So I just can spend like 2.90% of my price on advertising, which is pretty low. But then when I see of the metrics, okay, how much it cost me without marketing, how much cost me with marketing, and all that. So you will say like, oh, this is an amazing product, right? It's costing me $12.30, and I have this, so I'm making 60% margin, right? And that's the net profit. But then when I take in consideration the margin after marketing, I just get 5%. And I see this all the time. You are not, or most sellers are not really going down into a dime, into a percentage of each single unit. How much costs you each single unit to run that? Because this could break your whole business. You could be the most efficient, open the cases super fast, having a good product, making some, having sales velocity. But at the end of the day, if you don't have clear your numbers, you're probably just like um, moving money. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation and the slides. Okay, the second slide is the inventory planner. This is extremely huge for people that are not using a software. If you are in a level of needing a software, I completely recommend to use a software, because this what I'm going to be showing you is a little bit time consuming. But once you do it once, or the most important or the most time consuming part is the first day or the first time you make this file. After that, you could manage yourself. Once you get to a point when you need a bigger spreadsheet or you need a lot of stuff, I'll probably it's better if you use a software. Again, what I'm showing you here is just a free tool. So going back to my screen, you see here, this is the Excel spreadsheet that, oh, no, wait a minute. Sorry. In the inventory planner, in the slides, you can see here the QR. So if you scan it, you will be able to download the spreadsheet that I'm going to show you. Or you can just download it from the link down is SoSock/Amazon inventory spreadsheet template, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so going to the template. This is what you see here, okay? This is what you get when you download this template. And again, this model works amazing once you understand your sales velocity. This is probably good for sellers that have been selling for more than 180 days, because it really goes down into how many units you need to reorder, how frequently you need to send inventory, and how or when and how much can you afford to do advertising or promotions. And this is what Sosok and Chelsea does a great job talking about this. It's inventory planning with minded marketing. So taking in consideration when you're doing marketing, taking in consideration how much inventory you have, how fast can you reorder, and so on. So I'm not gonna explain this tool in depth because it's pretty straightforward once you watch the YouTube video. So the instructions are here, and the how-to video, Chelsea does an amazing work explaining it. But at the end, what I like to see, and this is a super tool, again, if you are maximizing for efficiency, that it will give you at the end a result on how many units you need to order, how many units you need to send, and how often you need to make those reorders and recommendations. Because I see that a lot of sellers just like play it by ear. It's just like, oh well, I'm gonna reorder X, or my supplier minimum order quantity is X, and there is no data behind that decision. And again, if we want to maximize for efficiency, we need to start paying attention to data. It's the game of just playing by ear is over if you want to be here for the long term. And I know that there were some news last week of pharma packs going out of or closing their operations on Amazon, the biggest seller on FBA. Huge catalog, huge things. Again, their operations were a mess. They didn't have their numbers clear, and at the end of the day, at the end of the run, they are going down because they were sprinting. They were like not maximizing efficiency. So if you're just moving money, you won't be able to be in this game for a long time if you don't see this. Again, I love this tool because it's free. A lot of people ask me like, hey, how can you reorder, what's your formula? This is the formula, and the spreadsheet has all the formulas you need. In case that this is extremely overwhelming, they also offer a tool. Again, the spreadsheet works amazing if you just want to do it yourself, if you have a team, or if you think the system is a little bit not perfect for you, you can even customize this shit. And lastly, the last slide is the shipping and prepping optimizer. Just let me put the slide. Okay, so shipping and prepping optimizer is huge because, and I see this all the time, when we send inventory to anywhere, right? We normally, and that's my experience with the sellers that I work with and their 3PLs, it's like, okay, what's the size of the box that you're using? well, we're used 20 by 20 by 20. It's because that's the biggest one we get from Home Depot or for Uline or from USPS or UPS, sorry. Um, so it's like, is that really the carton that you need to use to send the most amount of units to your warehouse or to FBA? Or how is the configuration of your pallet? Again, this is a huge money saver if you do it right. And you need to start asking those questions. And the other thing that I see is like, okay, I ask how many units can you fit in a carton? And people answer like, well, I we just fit 10. And how? It's like, oh well, we played Tetris at the 3PL at the warehouse, and we start to put the most amount of units inside. That is not probably the best way to do it. And again, because I like data and I like to prove that I like to prove decisions with data, there is another tool from SoStock, again, free tool. This is the master carton calculator. You can scan it here and going to that calculator. So you can see it here in my screen. What they will ask you is two things. What's the measure of your units? So the package that you use to ship your units to FBA, and what's the size of the pallet that you are using? Again, this is in case that you're using pallets. If or it even works when you're using small parcels because it helps you to optimize the amount of units per carton. So it asked me for my dimensions, asked me for the pallet that I have, the configuration that I'm using right now. And again, you need to know like this information, you need to have it. How many units, what's the dimensions and all that, and how many units you are reordering. With the reordering process, they just help you to calculate that in a better way to optimize. And they say, for example, here, I put in my example that I order 1,200 units, but they tell me that if I order 1,344 or 1,152, I'll be optimizing better for shipping instead of using one more carton or one carton less, right? So when you put that information, you calculate your savings, and this is the part that is the most interesting, right? Because right now the system is telling me how much each unit costs me, and they're building one model to optimize my costs. So in this case, they're telling me that I'm spending $1.94, but I could be just spending 96 cents. Okay, and this is the way they do it. They tell you, before I was using 120 cartons, now with the new configuration that they're gonna give me, I'm gonna just use 75. And so they break things little by little, and at the end of the day, what they tell me is that when I ship pallets, I will be saving 195% of what I was doing before. So instead of spending $1,000 and 700, I'll be just spending 778, which is amazing. Again, you could be optimized for it, maybe not. Just put the information here and make sure that you're making the right decision based on data. So this is just the savings, but the part that we care about is this part with the packing blueprint. So what they're telling me is that I need to use a box that is 17.4 times 21.4 times 19.4. This box is not a box that I will go to UPS or Home Depot and get it. I need to make it in my warehouse or in my 3PL. But again, this will save me a lot of money that you are seeing here. And also they tell you how many units and what's the orientation that you need to use to fit the most amount of units per carton. So before I was just putting in a carton, I was just putting 10 units, and this model built something and said like, okay, you can fit 16 units if you do it right. And again, the pallet dimensions, the pallet configuration and how many units I can send per pallet and all that. And at the end of the day, you're gonna be saving a lot of money. So this is a model completely free. Make sure that you input that information. So if you're doing things right, you will be um, optimizing for efficiency, right? And cutting inefficiencies in your business. Again, making the right decisions for your things. So putting my slides again, as you can see here, this is now you after this webinar. You have a toolkit complete with all the stuff that you're gonna need to implement in the next two webinars that we're having about flat files and SOPs. At the end of this journey, guys, you will be able, one, to solve the issues if you have any issues right now at the moment. You will be able to have a better perspective and see what you can do to fix those. And if you in the future get issues, or if you want to maximize right now to see what you have wrong in your business, you have the toolkit to start implementing the solutions. Okay, so in the next session, we're going to be talking about, as I said, how to use the flat files to build and protect your brand on Amazon. So for that session, and we're going to be sending you an email, make sure that you have your category listing report with you. If you want to get the most amount of that session, have the category listing report in your computer, because at the time that I'm going to be talking about it, you will be able to change stuff and make changes and uploading. And if you make an upload and you get an issue and we have time for a Q&A, you can put that in the session and we can go over it. So make sure you have it. It is extremely important, and you will take the most amount of the most benefit if you have it. If you want to learn more, and this is we are in the top of the hour. I think I'm doing 6 minutes more. I'm sorry for going over. If you scan this QR, you could see all the past webinars, podcasts, events that I've done, a lot of content about the backend management, a lot of flat files. Nothing will be as advanced as the next two sessions. This is probably the most advanced that I've been, and that's why it's super relevant if you have your category listing report with you, because you could be able to do stuff at the same time that I'm explaining. So I have few questions. I saw that a lot of people were asking the same thing about their recordings. Yes, these sessions will be recorded. If you sign up for the webinar in the website that we have to sign up for it, you will be getting the recordings. If you're not signed up for it, you're gonna be seeing these webinars probably in 1 or 2 months in our YouTube channel. They won't stay public. The only people that will have access to it is the people that register for this event. So make sure that you register. If you're seeing it now and you didn't register, make sure you do, because you're gonna get those. So yes, if you're here, you probably register and then you're gonna get that. I have 50 minutes more. If you guys want to make questions that you think that are related, again, let's try to make questions related to a toolkit, because if you have a specific problem of flat files or other SOPs, I will prefer to answer that in the session, because you will see as go along with the processes and all the things you do, you will probably, or I will probably be answering those questions for you in that session. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. Like I'm very honored for you to be joining from Australia. Thank you so much. Again, if you have any questions, you have to request a category listing report from Amazon Seller Central. So CJ, yes, you need to request that. It's not open anymore, or at least not in the accounts that I have access to. So again, you can see, I share the SOP with you, and my team can put it in the chat. If you guys can put the link for the SOP, I believe it's online seller solutions dash category listing report. I don't remember. They will put it here. Winky, oh, thank you so much. He's saying that it's worth to wake up at 5 a.m. for it. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. I sometimes think this is so unsexy that nobody pays attention, but Again, amazing. Um, so what about resellers? Isn't possible to handle anything since we don't have the original SKU? Good question. And I'm gonna say, unfortunately, that it depends. It depends because if you, for example, let's say you're selling reselling Nike, right? And you are one of the 120 sellers that are selling in that ASIN, you will probably, if you just start now, you'll probably have close to zero contribution points to make that contribution. And I have a very detailed video that you can find in the Learn More section. I'm gonna pull the slide again so you can see the QR code. And I talk about that on how can you, as a reseller, start contributing and contributing and contributing to a listing to a point where you eventually get some contribution points. This doesn't mean that you will be able to control completely the ASIN, but you could make improvements. And because the catalog is for Amazon like a pool of information, the best information will take precedent if the seller that contributes has the most amount of points. So thank you guys. I don't know if there is any other questions. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to join me on Wednesday again, that you have your category listing report on hand, and maybe the browse tree guide if you have if you want to start making improvements, and I'll be showing you how to do it. Don't worry about it. Make sure that you have your category listing report and your browse tree guide spreadsheet downloaded. Once you have that, you are good to go. We're gonna be playing with that, and yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy it, and I hope you take the most amount of information. Again, for the people that register, you will get the session, and also you will get the slides as a PDF, so you don't miss any of the SOPs and the information. Don't worry about it. You will get it all. Probably tomorrow you will get the session and the presentation, so you have it all. Does different account managers have their own points for making changing on the same brand? Oh, great question. Yes. The answer is yes, and it doesn't depend on the account manager. It depends on the user permission that you have. So I see that a lot of times when there is an issue of contribution, and as a user, as a manager, you're not able to change that information, you will be able to do it, or sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you are able to make those changes in the main selling account where that SKU was created. So again, this is a little bit tricky for those of you guys that have teams, a big team, and you don't really want to share those credentials. But if you keep facing an issue where the system is telling you or is reading you as the contributor, as the owner of that listing, as the owner of that trademark, and your changes are not going through, make sure to upload the file or the category listing report or the category specific file from your main Seller Central account. That makes a difference. So that's the only difference between an account manager and a real or a main account. That's the only thing. Um, Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here. So you can see there, guys, we put in the chat the SOP for the category listing report. So you can see online seller solutions slash CLR dash download dash SOP. That's probably not perfect, but we're gonna make it better. Thank you so much. I think if there is no more questions, you guys have a great night, afternoon, morning, week, amazing week. Happy Monday, and I hope to see you on Wednesday. Thank you so much.